Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. We're here today with Tony Kai from Nerdio. Good
What's
morning,
up,
good
guys?
afternoon, Tony. Is it
Good
morning
afternoon.
time or afternoon for you? Oh, you're on the East
Oh,
Coast, just
I'm East
afternoon.
Coast. Yeah. Afternoon, 2 o'clock.
Okay, good deal. Well, it's
Yeah,
always so hard to tell sometimes, you know. You never can tell where everybody's joining from.
that's
So,
right.
well, good
Yeah, and
deal.
we have employees all over the world, so it's hard to sometimes remember how many hours ahead my other colleagues are. So I get it.
That's right. That's right. Well, Tony, I've been following Nerdio for a long time now, a couple years now, and tell us about what Nerdio offers MSPs or IT service providers.
Yeah. And I think we've been a sponsor for almost 3 years now, right,
Yeah,
Scott? But yeah,
absolutely.
so we've been in the market for a while now. Beginning of 2016 is when we launched the Nerdio product.
Okay.
And so I'll kind of tell you what it's about and I kind of catch you up on the timeline of where we are today, right? So Nerdio is a product that enables MSPs to deploy virtual desktop environments inside of Microsoft Azure.
Okay.
We help with the pricing, the spin up and the deployment of the environment. If you're new to this stuff, it's super easy to spin up, management of it, and then optimization, right? You gotta want to optimize this stuff to kind of bring your costs down to you can make money doing so. But the
Okay.
history of Nerdio, we started in the private cloud space. We had, Nerdio was a MSP out of Chicago. Our CEO, Vadim, a smart guy, right, started doing cloud backup in 2005. And by 2007, he was selling virtual desktop solutions inside his private cloud running on top of VM Horizon or ESX on top of the ESXi stack.
Okay.
And the challenge he had, Scott, was every time he had a new customer come on board, he would have to have an engineer kind of redeploy the environment every single time, the same way every single time. So he started scripting this stuff, right? And then he slapped the UI on top of it, and before you know it, we were managing, hundreds of customers using a very familiar UI that was designed in-house for our own help desk technicians to use to manage, their entire IT in the cloud. And at the time, we called it IT as a service.
Okay.
So yeah, but yeah, go ahead. Questions?
So basically, you guys built up Nerdio because you were using it in house and you kept having to do the same task over and over and over, and you needed to standardize that task. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
Nerdio evolved basically from the standardization and automation of that mundane task. And what was that task exactly that
Yeah.
Nerdio solves?
Yeah. Great. Yeah. So most MSPs today will go into a customer environment and try to win
Okay.
their managed services business, right? So taking whatever they have in their IT closet and saying, hey, if things need to be upgraded, here's the cost, but here's the price to manage this customer's environment every single month, right?
Okay.
But Nerdio's old approach wasn't like that. We came to a customer and we said, hey, we have this nice virtual desktop environment where we could take all your servers, move them into our private cloud, and here's the fixed price for it, right? Here's $99 a month or 150 of those depending on the plan.
Hmm.
And if you didn't want to do that, that's fine. Here's a sister company, a traditional managed services company. Go work with them, right? So we were very selective in the type of businesses we went after, and we went after those who wanted to be in the virtual desktop space, right? And this is again back in 2007, where virtual desktop was largely unknown to most MSPs and the servicing SMB. It was largely a enterprise focused technology that enterprise organizations deployed. So in 2016, our CEO Vadim decided to maybe have other MSPs resell his service, right? So he with the GUI he started reselling a product called Nerdio, and in the back end, it was really used to deploy VDI environments in our private cloud stack. But more and more, he went out and talked to MSPs. MSPs said one thing to us, and guess what that one thing was? That
What's
one thing
that?
was, well, we don't want to be in your private cloud. We love what you're doing. We love the automation. We just don't want to put our customers in your private cloud, right? And so our
Gotcha. That
response
makes
was, well,
sense.
where do you want to go, right? And they all kind of said Azure, right? So that was the first kind of a thing that kind of pointed us in that direction. And so in 2017, we announced Nerdio for Azure, compatible with Microsoft Azure, and at the time
Okay.
was an RDS-based technology, a remote desktop-based solution. And then fast forward a couple of years, Windows Virtual Desktop was announced and released in 2019, which is a
Okay.
game-changing technology, and then kind of catapulted our status in the market to become, MSP leading industry expert on Azure, right? So that's kind of how our company progressed. And so if you kind of think of Nerdio, a lot of people think of Azure.
Gotcha. Okay. So Azure was like the first stepping stone into a different private cloud other than the one you were using that you were currently that
Yeah, correct.
the
So
other
yeah,
MSPs didn't want to put their clients in your
yeah. I mean,
in your
super
area. I gotcha.
understandable, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So what are the benefits, Tony, to MSPs? We don't, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't do a whole lot of virtualization in my MSP because I also own an MSP.
Yep.
But it's very small. So what are the key benefits? Why should MSPs look at virtualizing their client environments?
Yeah. So I mean, not to use our current situation as a
Sure.
perfect example, but we have a chip shortage, right?
Right.
Hard to get hardware. Takes I'm hearing a couple of months to get a server in. All
Sure.
right. Meanwhile, in Azure, you can spin up a server in a minute and have things working there.
Okay.
Just much easier to manage, much more portable, right? You remember some of those applications where you have a like if you need to install FileZilla, you download FileZilla, you install the exe, you install the whole thing, but then have a portable version of it. So I mean, think of it very similar to that. Things are much more portable, much easier to manage, the ability to spin up really fast,
Okay.
and really MSPs need to go to that recurring revenue model, right? So gone are the days where you sell a server, make 30% one time every 6 years. Now you can make 40% every single month forever, right? So
Oh,
that's how
great. Okay.
MSPs are doing, and just take it from the same learnings we had when 10 years ago when people started moving off of Exchange servers into
Hmm.
Office 365. A lot of people resisted, including the MSP I worked at, and we were saying Microsoft's coming after our business, right? They're taking our Exchange servers away, and
Right.
a lot of MSP built a business around sort of redoing these Exchange servers every couple of years, right? So project labor is gone. So now, but now fast forward, 2021, you can't find a customer that's on-prem Exchange anymore. And if you do, I bet you that one of the first projects they're doing is to get them off that Exchange server. So the same shift is happening with the virtual desktop space.
Gotcha. Yeah. And, I never got on the Exchange server thing, but I did get onto Office 365. So
Right, because it's so
um,
easy, right?
it
Like,
is. It is. I
yeah.
mean, and so you pretty much feel like the same thing that happened to on-prem Exchange servers and the way that MSPs work with that is pretty much going to happen or happening now or has already happened. It's just evolving into virtualization Windows
For
Virtual
desktop.
Desktops.
Yeah.
So that brings up a good point. Then, what's the difference between Windows 365 and Azure Virtual Desktop? Did I say that right?
Yeah. So
Okay.
funny Microsoft. When Microsoft launched the product Windows Virtual Desktop in 2019, and a couple of
Okay.
months ago they decided to rename the product to Azure Virtual Desktop, causing a lot
Okay.
of confusion in the market. But in August they announced a new product called Windows 365.
Okay.
So Windows 365 is a flat rate modern workplace SKU type of product where they're
Okay.
selling a Azure Virtual Desktop as a fixed cost, right?
Okay.
So if you think about Microsoft, for those who kind of pay attention a lot to sort of Microsoft does, we have to, of course, right? But a
Hmm.
lot of MSPs, they have a love-hate relationship with Microsoft, right? They love it because it's how their business runs, and because of Microsoft, they have things to fix.
Sure.
But they
Sure.
hate it because Microsoft's this big giant company that maybe has their way with upping their pricing whatever they want and causing massive confusion in the market. But but if you think about Microsoft, Microsoft has they tout three clouds, right? They have something called the Azure Consumer Revenue Cloud, or ACR, or Intelligent Cloud is what they call it,
Okay.
and they have the Modern Workplace Cloud, which is everything under your Office 365 SKU, your Microsoft 365, your Teams, OneDrive, SharePoint, all that stuff is considered Modern Workplace. And then they have the third cloud, which we don't really do much with, but it's Dynamics Cloud, right? So Dynamics 365, Business Central. So those are the three sort of Azure products that Microsoft has. And Azure Virtual Desktop is a very flexible virtual desktop solution built on
Okay.
top of the Intelligent Cloud. So it's consumption based, right? Consumption based meaning you pay for what you use. Cost, quote unquote, is unpredictable, which we'll actually show you that it's really not. But the predictable model is the price per SKU. So everybody here on the show knows an M365 Business Premium SKU probably costs you $20 a month. With your discount, you get it for maybe 17 or 18 bucks, depending on who your distributor is. That's how Microsoft's now selling Windows 365. Right? In the past, it was a consumption-based item. Now it's a fixed price item, and they're actually selling it to anybody who wants it. So if anybody wants to go on Microsoft's website, log into their Microsoft 365 portal, and order a cloud PC license, they can. Right? And there's 12 different SKUs that Microsoft has. So Microsoft has done two things, right? Kind of made it fixed cost, so a lot more people are sort of able to buy it and want to buy it. It also made it very easy to manage and consume. So easy. And I'll give you an example. Not that any of this is true, but I can imagine businesses like Comcast and Xfinity and all these ISP providers. They'll go down Main Street and say, "Hey, we're going to offer managed services and give you a cloud Windows 10, Windows 11 PC for a fixed price per user per month, and we'll give you tech support." Right. So what does that mean for MSPs who have been doing stuff on premise, right? So again, they've made it so easy that like ISPs like that can go out and offer a service like this now, right? Or they made it so easy that you can walk down Best Buy, right? You can go to the checkout aisle and you might have a stack of stuff that used to sell just Office 365, 5-pack for the family. You can have a Windows 10 or Windows 11 5-pack for the family for a fixed price. So that's the world that it's going to. And I think MSPs need to figure out how to take advantage of it and intelligently speak about it if it comes up. And when it does come up, you're probably not going to be the first person talking to them about it because Microsoft's marketing directly to end customers.
Well, it's a lot to consume, that's for sure. So, I've seen this before though. Nerdio when you guys get involved, basically Nerdio comes in, and so you've got just to say you've got an MSP that wants to deploy virtualization to their clients. Let's say they have a CPA firm with 5
10 users.
5 to 10 users, and they want to set up a virtual environment for them. So where does Nerdio really fit into that equation?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? And a lot of the confusion about transacting in Azure has to do with a lot of the components that kind of need to come together, right? So you have this big giant Microsoft, right? And there's different ways to buy or consume stuff from Microsoft. You can be a direct customer, right? And buy directly from Microsoft. You can buy Microsoft through a tier 2 indirect distributor, like a Pax8, like a SureWeb, like a Tech Data Ingram, right? Which a lot of MSPs currently work with. And then you can buy Microsoft through an enterprise organization do this, but something called an EA agreement, right? Some kind of high monetary commit for a large enterprise organization. So most MSPs buy from a tier 2 distributor like Pax8. And what you got to do is go and get your licenses or subscriptions from Pax8, right? So you got to go to your command console, or hit up your wingwoman person, right? And say, "Hey, for this customer, ABC, CPA firm, I need an Azure subscription." Right. And so you get a subscription, and a subscription is just a virtual credit card. That's the best way I can put it. It's a $0 SKU in their portal. You grab that, right? You grab your appropriate Microsoft 365 licensing, right? So let's say you're selling your customer Microsoft 365 Business Premium, you get that, and then you're supposed to go in and think about a giant supermarket, right? Imagine you have a unlimited use, no limit credit card, and you're going to go and buy the ingredients to make a big pizza, right? You need your pizza dough, you need your pepperoni, you need your cheese, but all those different components are a service of Azure, and they have their own different costs, right? The piece of pepperoni is going to be $5, the dough is going to be like $4, blah blah blah. You got to take those things and kind of put it together, make it, massage it, put it in the oven, and it comes out your pizza, right? So in that analogy, the pizza is your customer's IT environment, right? Which may have a domain controller, might have a file server, might have your application servers, and by the way, they also want to work remotely, and they don't want any of this gear in-house. So you got to give them a virtual desktop, right? So in goes the ingredients, the massaging of the cooking happens, and out comes the pizza with everything kind of already pre-built. And that's what Nerdio does, right? So Nerdio will ingest your subscription, will take that credit card, right? Take your Microsoft licenses, you tell us what to build, and the tool will build everything for you, and output the other end comes a fully built environment that you can manage using our product, and the customer can consume, using, for example, that virtual desktop.
So Nerdio is the pizza oven.
It's the expert cook.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, because the pizza oven is part of the process, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah. So.
Well, how many MSP partners does Nerdio have on board now?
I don't know how many partners exactly, but I will say that last week we surpassed our 1 millionth virtual desktop user. So out of all our partners we have using our platform, MSPs around the world, we surpassed 100 or 1 million desktops. Yep.
So you all pretty much gauge it on end users. How many units end virtualization units do we have out?
Right, right. Because
Okay,
a customer could be 2 seats or it could be 1,000 seats, right? So
gotcha.
we really don't know how many customers, and then a partner can deploy one account or they could deploy their entire or MSP practice into Azure and using Nerdio to do so. So we do have customers that, just like yourselves, right, have a bunch of customers on premise and have made a strategic decision to know, one guy told me, I'm never selling anything with blinking lights anymore, right? Moving forward, everything I'm doing is Azure. And it's better that way because now I could reduce my field tech team. I don't need to go on site anymore. Yes, you still need, your firewall management and your basic switches and your access points, but pretty much everything else, you don't need that anymore. So,
So it
those guys
becomes
are
more
making
of
a
a
strategic
networking
decision.
job at that point.
Yeah, you go in there, you throw in a really nice standard network, make sure everything is good. But you don't really manage the PCs anymore. Everything you do is, all your resources goes into this pooled, environment you have in Azure, and you train all your techs to kind of learn that instead of, all the stuff they currently know. It's a shift for sure, right? It's not something that you do overnight, but it's something that, the writing's on the wall. Things are going that way. You got to learn it now.
So it's probably good for like a small MSP like myself to just take one client, just do it one client at
Absolutely.
a
Your
time.
smallest client, yeah.
Yeah, just take your smallest client. And what about actually the MSPs doing it for themselves? Like, I'm a big fan of eating my own dog food.
Yeah.
So, I feel like that's the best way for me to learn it from a technical standpoint is just to get my hands dirty with it. Um, so that's probably one of the easiest things to do to get involved in it. Um,
Mm.
what about like the hardware? I know you're not dealing with the same kind of hardware. I mean, obviously you need hardware, but I've heard a lot of people say that they can have 3 or 4 and hosted environments on one piece of hardware versus like on an old way of doing it, you'd have like this hardware supports this operating system and this machine. That's it. It's one machine. How does that kind of break down for Nerdio or
Yeah,
in
so
a
so you're,
virtualized
you're
environment?
talking about so you're talking about virtualizing an environment where you have one piece of hardware. You install the
Okay.
hypervisor role on it, and inside the hypervisor role, you have different guest machines, right? But
Okay.
inside of Azure, you might have heard this term before. They call it a hyperscale hypervisor. So all of Azure is essentially a big giant Hyper-V
Okay.
environment, and you can go in there and deploy whatever VMs and different services as you want. So I'm not going to say it's unlimited because nothing's really unlimited, but they make it so anything your heart's desire you want to deploy, you have unlimited space to carve out as many different pieces from the big giant hypervisor as you want, right? You can have a 64 core, 1 TB RAM machine if you want, spin it up in a minute, or you can go something as low as 1 core, 3.5 gig machine if you want, right? So
Okay.
anything in between that, you can pretty much deploy. You can use machines that have graphics cards on them. So if you have customers that are engineering firms that have CAD CAM workloads, right? We know that
Okay.
if you're using AutoCAD or Revit or SolidWorks or Bluebeams or Lumion, any of those applications, they need discrete graphics, right? So Microsoft has a dedicated version of VM SKUs that have graphics on them. So literally anything you want to do, you can do in Azure.
That's awesome.
And
That's
and that's one
awesome.
of the benefits, right? Just the vastness of it.
So, what's the best way for an MSP to learn this technology? If say that we have some viewers watching right now, and they're like, "God, I want to get started. I just don't know where to start.
Yep.
Where should they start?"
Yeah, I would say, before, if you feel comfortable in bringing your first client into Azure, a lot of people do that as their sort of learning experience, right? They bring a small customer into Azure and they work with our Go Live engineering team that'll handhold them through the process, right? So you'll learn a lot naturally by just doing it. But a lot of MSPs say to me, well, I want to eat my own dog food. I want to put myself into Azure first. How do I get started, right?
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things you could do. As an MSP, as long as you're a Microsoft partner and have an NPM ID issued by Microsoft,
Hmm.
you have the opportunity to purchase something called a action pack, right? Have you
Okay.
heard of that, Scott?
I've
An
heard of
action,
it. I've never
yeah,
had one, but I've heard of it.
yeah. So an action pack is like a $500 thing you buy every year. All right, it's
Okay.
an annual thing. It's $500. But what it gives you is it gives you $100 in free Azure credits. Gives you
Okay.
a bunch of M365 licenses for free. It gives you a bunch of Windows Server, SQL licenses. It's like an MSP starter kit from Microsoft,
Oh wow.
right? So to buy that for $500 one time, and then just the Azure credits alone, right? $100 a month, 12 months, that's 1,200 bucks in Azure credits. So it's well worth its value. But a lot of
Okay.
people will buy that starter pack and use the benefits that it gives you to kind of use those credits to spin up your first Azure environment, to poke around and see what deploying a VM looks like, feels like. How do you RDP into it to manage it? All those questions get asked by first having some money to play with, right? Unfortunately, Azure is not a thing where, Nerdio can give you free internal use licenses, but whatever you do in Azure costs some kind of money. Right?
Gotcha.
So Microsoft will sell you this action pack, which comes with free Azure credits, so you can use that and play and do a little dev testing or whatever you want to do.
Okay. Well, I'm definitely going to sign up for that. You sold me. That's awesome. So, do you guys have? I heard something about Nerdio Manager for MSP. Can you briefly talk about that? What that is?
Yeah. So Nerdio Manager for MSP is a MSP focused product that was we redesigned from the ground up in the middle of 2020, and it was actually launched in April of this year. So it's a brand new product. We already have more customers on this product than we did in our old product, just in the couple of months that it's been out. So super exciting for us. But we redesigned it because the first product Nerdio for Azure was designed in I think development started in 2015 or 2016. So it was using the latest and greatest technology from way back then, right? And so obviously it's 2021, where we kind of said, well, do we improve on that product, or we redevelop something from the ground up using modern architecture, modern techniques, right? So that's essentially what we did. And this product is way more flexible than our older legacy product, and just much faster. And a lot of our MSPs love the new one compared to the old one. So
That's excellent.
I can show you a demo of how the whole thing works if you want.
Yeah. That's why I was hoping we were going to get into that.
Yeah,
that's perfect. I think I enabled screen share for you.
Yeah, let me poke around and share my screen. So what I like to do, Scott, is kind of take you through from start to finish on how a MSP's journey into Azure may look like, right?
Okay.
So let me know when you can see it.
Yep, I got it.
Yep. So we're on our website, and we're gonna log into Nerdio, right?
Okay.
Actually, I'm already in it. So I'm in Nerdio, and Nerdio is this is a website basically that the MSPs host in their own Azure tenant, right? So so let's unwrap that for a minute. So it's an Azure application that we deploy from the Azure Marketplace that runs inside of the MSP's own Azure tenant, right?
Okay.
So it's a website that runs, and from the website you can pretty much access our cost estimator. You can manage your customers. You can add new customers. So all that stuff, right? So remember in the beginning of the call, I mentioned that Nerdio does 4 things, right? Nerdio helps you with pricing and packaging your solution, helps you with deployment, helps you with management, and then the optimization. So we'll start from the beginning. So Scott, you have a customer on Main Street, right? They're a CPA firm, 10 users, and they come to you and say, hey, I'm looking to retire. I don't really want the space anymore. COVID has driven no customers to my front door. I want to maintain my existing customers and grow online instead of having a presence in on Main Street, right? I want my users to work remotely wherever they are, whether it be from home or wherever they are, right? I don't really need my employees to be local anymore, but I still want to use my Lacert and QuickBooks and Pro Series FX and all those applications that I currently use. All right, what is the solution? So I think a lot of MSPs will think about that and say, hey, RDS might come to mind, right? RDS is remote desktop services running on Windows Server. Maybe they look for a private cloud, right, to put their stuff in. But almost nobody ever thinks of Azure because, what they've heard about Azure or the misconceptions of Azure. And maybe I'll ask you, Scott, what have you heard about Azure that maybe would kind of deter you from doing this? And we hear 3 a lot of times. So
my clients are too small.
Okay, sure, my clients are too small. But what you really mean is that it's too expensive, right?
Maybe. I don't know how expensive it is. In all honesty, I've never done it, so I wouldn't have a clue.
Great. So yeah, a lot of people tell us Azure is very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
It's very complex and it's risky, right? It's complex because it is complex, and it's risky because maybe I've never done it before, right? Or I don't have the skill set to do it. So all those things kind of deter me from using Azure. So what if Nerdio solves all those issues for you, right? So let me demonstrate the cost estimator, right? Because I'm sure if a customer comes to you with all the things I've kind of just said, and you thought Azure might be something that you want to put them into, the first thing you're going to ask yourself is, what's the price of this? Right? Okay. So what Nerdio's done is we've created a cost estimator that helps you figure out exactly what the costs are before you go doing anything, right? So let's take that example of an end customer. So, and I'm going to kind of run through this really quickly. You guys can all access the calculator on our website, getnerdio.com.
Okay.
But I'll just kind of go through our fictitious scenario and kind of put this stuff in. And at the end, you'll see a price per user per month that you can mark up and sell to your customer, right? So first question is, how many people use desktops? So say 10 people use desktops. How many people use dedicated personal desktops? That's dedicated VDIs. In this case, we won't use any, so we'll put 0. And how many people use GPUs, right? They're not doing any CAD workload, so I'll put 0. So it's just going to say the assumption is the rest of the people are what's called Azure Virtual Desktop pooled users.
Okay.
Pooled users are basically Windows 10 multi-session users. Think of it like a terminal server, except they're running Windows 10 or Windows 11, and not a Windows server, right?
Okay.
So let's say these are 10 power users. We're going to give them a DASV4 machine, which is a 8-core 32 gig of RAM machine inside of Azure.
Okay.
And don't worry about not knowing these codes and what these mean, right? Almost nobody really understands what they mean unless you're doing it every single day like myself. But don't worry about that. That's exactly what Nerdio does to help you. We help you figure out exactly what you need, and we'll pick the right SKUs for you.
Okay.
Right? And there's some built-in auto-scaling capabilities, right? Nerdio saves a lot of money by being able to turn things on and off at night, right? So maybe I'll demonstrate that. Let's say this CPA firm during their non-busy season always gets off of work at 7 p.m. So maybe their amount of work hours that they typically work every week is about 50 hours. And you want Nerdio to intelligently turn off their machines when the last person logs off, right? And automatically turn it back on when the first person logs on during the morning. Or maybe somebody wants to log in at 12 in the morning, do some work for an hour before they go to bed. Nerdio will automatically see that connection coming in and automatically turn on your machine. So when Microsoft charges you per hour for consumption, you're truly limiting it to only the consumption when the customer logs in and uses it, right? So that's one of the ways that Nerdio can save you money by making sure that, when your customer's not on and using the system, that things
not wasting
exactly
wasting resources. I got you.
Yeah. The best analogy I can come up with is let's say you had a little light sensor on the corner of your room, right? You walk in the room, the sensor senses you come in, it turns the light on for you. When you're leaving the room and you're done using that room, a couple of minutes later, the light sensor turns off the light for you. So
okay.
Same idea. Okay, so you've made your decision on an 8-core 32 gig of RAM machine for 10 users. Let's say this customer has a domain controller, right?
Okay.
And a domain controller, let's say, is a small 2-core 4 gig machine for 10 users, not a big problem. Let's say I have a app server, and that app server is going to also double up as my file server, right? And this app server has got all my accounting packages, right, from 2015 all the way to 2021. Okay. So using Lacert and QuickBooks, right? So maybe I'll give them somewhat of a beefy machine. I'll go with a 4-core 16 gig of RAM app file server, and maybe the app server has, I don't know, 512 gigs of data used, right? So we're gonna kind of basically note down all the VMs I want on this list and their usable data space.
And the virtual machines that you're drawing out right now are basically, if you took virtualization out of it, they would be the actual
physical
servers
hosts.
that they
exactly.
the physical hosts. Okay, so you're just creating virtual units here in Azure.
Yeah, virtual carved out units from Azure's big giant pool of resources. And to your point, you think about them as physical servers, each one of these.
Okay.
Things. Yep. And so let's say my 10 user environment's got these 2 VMs and my desktops, right?
Okay.
So now you want to make a decision on what type of licensing you need to bring, right? So to use Azure Virtual Desktop, you need at the minimum a Microsoft 365 Business Premium SKU. And whether or not you're using virtual desktops, I think M365 Business Premium is a good SKU to start with. I know a lot of people have the 1250 plan, right? The one with the apps and Exchange, but upgrading to the M365 Business Premium gives you a lot of like security features that you don't get with the 1250 plan. Or you get the Intune, you get the Azure Virtual Desktop licenses for free. You get the conditional access, MFA, Azure AD Premium 1. So those are all additional, I wouldn't even say nice to have things anymore. Things, in today's
becoming
time,
standard.
Becoming a standard. So that's the SKU you want. And
they changed that. I don't mean to interrupt you, but didn't Microsoft change that? Because didn't that 1250 plan used to be the Business Premium?
Yeah, so they changed the line of items.
Now it's just business.
So Microsoft, the Office 365 became business M365 Business Standard.
Okay.
Right. And over time, they've added more features to it. Like I remember 2 years ago, they added Azure AD Premium 1, which gives you granular conditional access. Right. So Microsoft keeps adding to the SKU, which is why now they're asking for more money, and a lot of MSPs are saying no, right? But to Microsoft's defense, they keep adding and innovating on the product, and the product becomes better and better. So, cost of goods go
Gotcha.
up, and so I can see why they're asking for more. Right?
So really, MSPs need to be reselling to their clients the Microsoft 365 Business Premium SKUs.
Yes, because that has the basic foundations of all the security stuff that any modern workplace should have.
Okay, good to know.
Otherwise, you're on the business standard plan, and you end up having to a la carte different things, which ends up actually costing more than the SKU itself.
Gotcha.
That makes sense.
Cheaper just to go ahead and get it all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And here, if you have other different combinations of different licenses you want to bring to Nerdio or bring into this environment, you kind of identify it here, right? So let's say you want to also say you want to price out your RMM, right? So give me a cost for an RMM per license. Make it up. $2.
Yeah, $2 an endpoint a month. That's fine.
Right. Yeah. So maybe you have Huntress you're using, right? Maybe that's $1.50. Maybe you have antivirus, right? And that's another, let's say $2 per seat. I'm just making it up, but this is your typical IT stack, right? That MSP would have to kind of run a full IT environment.
So they can get a true accurate cost per endpoint.
Exactly. Yeah. Gotcha. And that's what the tool is all about. The tool is to give you a really good, solid idea of what running this entire environment is with all licenses included running in Azure. Right. Gotcha. Now, keep in mind, Nerdio sells none of this stuff. We don't sell 365. We don't sell Huntress. We don't sell RMM. We don't sell AV. You buy that from your current. Yeah, we sell the platform, but our tool helps you wrap everything together to give you a good idea of what the whole thing costs. Because without it, you're kind of clueless as to, how much this will run you in Azure.
It's probably super hard to quote it too.
Oh yeah. For those who have played with the Microsoft calculator, you guys know what I mean. You kind of go there and you're lost. You don't really know what you need, and how do you know you're not missing something? And oh, by the way, the cost is tremendously high, right? So that's sort of the feedback that I've gotten over the last couple of years when talking to MSPs who have tried to doing this stuff on their own.
Okay.
Yeah, and I won't explain these two things, but these two things are uber important. Maybe I should explain it, but something's called there's a thing called the reserve instance in Microsoft. And something called an Azure hybrid benefits. They're two different things. Oftentimes they're confused as being the same things, but they're not the same things. What a reservation basically means is that you're going to tell Microsoft you're going to use these VMs for 1 or 3 years. So essentially you're committing to a 1 year or 3 year agreement with Microsoft. And there's a caveat to that, right? That you're committing to a 1 to 3 year agreement with Microsoft to use their VMs, and in exchange they give you a huge discount for doing so. So this is why a lot of MSPs think Azure is very expensive, because all they look at is the MSRP of the VM in Azure. They're not looking at it with a 3 year commit. Now, the asterisk there is that Microsoft actually doesn't enforce the 3 year commit. So you can make a 3 year commit, get an 80% discount off of MSRP. And by the way, if your customer cancels on you, you can cancel without a penalty. And that's the part that a lot of MSPs don't know.
Great to know.
That prevent people from doing these commitments, right? Because if you commit, you get an 80% discount, but part of you don't want to commit because if a customer leaves me or whatever happens, I don't want to be stuck with the bill, right?
Right.
And the awesome thing, and I can show you this, if you go to the Microsoft's sort of documentation on reservations, go to cancellation policy, it says we currently are not charging an early termination fee, but in the future, there might be a 12% penalty fee, right? So I've been at Nerdio for 3.5 years now. They've never charged this. So, and not that they won't in the future, but right now
they're not doing it.
Yeah. So I take the risk because the upside is I get to make 80% more margin than somebody who didn't know this and didn't commit to the reservation.
Wow.
So and I'll show you in real life. Yeah, I'll show you in real life what that even equates to, just to kind of boggle your mind there. So this is the real Azure calculator, and I'll pick a random VM just to demonstrate how much money you can actually save by doing so. So let's use a region in the US East US, and I'll go with DA-ASV4, the same VM I was using before. That's an 8-core, 32 gig of RAM machine.
Okay.
Let me switch this to US currency. It's an 8-core, 32 gig of RAM machine. It's 75 cents per hour. So every hour you run this machine on, right? On means you're using it, whether actually somebody's using it or not, doesn't matter. If it's on, it's being used, right?
Gotcha.
It's 75 cents per hour. If you run this machine for 24 hours a day, Scott, for an entire month, you're roughly around 730 hours of usage, right? that
Okay.
730 hours will run you about $548, right? And most MSPs will go, whoa, 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 wait right there. I
Right.
can go buy a server from Dell for $1,500 and get an 8-core 32 gig RAM. Why the hell would I ever do this, right? But a lot of people don't know you can commit to the 0-year reservation through your
Okay.
distributor. Again, no penalty for getting out. That drops the cost to $376. And we haven't even talked about something called Azure Hybrid Benefit. Azure Hybrid Benefit just means you don't. So when you rent something from Microsoft, you're renting not only the hardware but the Windows Server operating system, right? But if you own the license or you were willing to buy the license if you don't own it already, that's called Azure Hybrid Benefit. So to buy a
Okay.
Windows Server license for $582, you actually can save $268 per month by doing that, just that alone.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'll pause right there. To buy a license for $582, it's valid for 3 years, you get to save $268 per month. So you do the ROI math on that, Scott. How many months before you pay off that license? Just 2 months. Right?
Yeah, 2 months. That's it.
Yeah, and that's crazy because by toggling this now, that VM becomes $107 a month compared to $548.
Wow.
So you tell me, is that still expensive? Not really, because an 8-core machine, I could fit probably 12 people in there.
Right.
So you really take this number divided by 12. That's how much compute costs for your virtual desktop in Azure.
And you said you're charged by that virtual machine just being on. So Nerdio actually has the capability to turn it off and on as
yep,
needed.
exactly.
So reducing your cost even further.
Exactly. So this is like a really good number, right? It's $107. But let's go back to that use case, like you just said, right? So an average
Okay.
person, let's say, works, I don't know, 45 hours per work week, let's just say,
Yeah.
right? Times 4 weeks in a month, you're at 180 hours. If you
Okay.
actually use this VM smart and you're only using it for 180 hours per month, this is the cost of that VM, $69.
Wow.
Right? Divided by 12 users, because let's say you could fit 12 users on this machine.
Okay.
So when people think Azure is expensive, my response is you just don't know how to use it.
Right.
not to
Right.
sound cocky or anything, but really you can get this VM for a little under $6 per month per user if you think about it that way.
Wow. That's
so
awesome.
hopefully this was like a shift in the way you think about Azure, because when I first saw this, I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea that this is was even a thing you could do. So that's exactly what we're talking about here. But little things add up, right? You got your licenses, you got your disks and everything. They add up to some significant amount. But what I'm saying is it's not as bad as most people think, right?
Okay.
So then we have moving down the calculator, we have in-region backup. So let's say you want to do in-region backup and customer wants to do 30 dailies, 8 weeklies, 6 months, as an example. Do you need a site-to-site VPN to Azure? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. For this customer, they won't have an office. So let's say they don't. So you kind of just answer yes or no to these questions. You put, how much user profile sizes are, what your Azure discount from Pax8 is. So you go 9% off of Azure, 16% off of CSP, and you do this in the US East data center, right? So what you're going to see is this number come in, right? And we'll have to let this load because, quick fun fact, every single Azure region has a different cost for the same components.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, fun fact. So South Central down in Dallas is actually one of the more expensive regions in Azure, and East US 1 and 2 and West 2 is actually one of the cheapest.
So why is that?
I think it's got something to do with the generations of regions, right? So the older the data center is, the less sort of modern technology they have in terms of cooling the data center down and stuff. So the older the data center is, the more expensive Azure is because they have older gear, right? Older technology.
Oh, I thought it'd be the opposite. I thought if it was brand new and modern, that it would be more expensive.
Ah, no, that's a funny thing, right? So if it's brand new and modern, they use what's available now. I mean, you've seen Microsoft dunking data centers into the ocean for cooling.
Yeah,
Right?
I did see that.
So yeah, what's the cost of water cooling your stuff from the ocean? Zero. So I mean, that's an example, right? So typically newer data centers, they have the technology to kind of bring costs down. In data centers, they measure something called I think PUE or PUA or something like that, but it stands for how efficient sort of the region or data center is.
Okay.
So typically the older ones have a little bit of higher cost. So if you're running this in US East, to have 10 users have their own virtual desktop with a domain controller with an app file server, 4-core 16 gig of RAM machine, 512 gigs of data, and everybody sharing an 8-core 32 gig of RAM terminal server or Azure Virtual Desktop.
Okay.
With all your backups and everything included, right? Along with all your RMM, Huntress, antivirus licenses, all that, running you $72 per user per month, right? So that's not
Okay.
bad, you know, 'cause an average person's cell phone bill is what, $50 per month for your cell phone, right? If you're not in a family plan.
Right.
So if your cost is $72 to run all of your IT in the cloud, which is why we used to call it IT as a service, right? Just like Netflix delivers a movie to your television screen,
Yep.
Azure's delivering their full virtual desktop into your customer's either thin client or laptop or physical computer. You can offer all that for $72 a month your cost. So if your cost is $72, and let's say you want to make say 40% markup, you need to be selling this at $100 a seat to make 40% every single month forever.
Gotcha.
That's not a
Okay.
bad number to go to your customer and say,
No,
right?
not at all.
Right, and especially with everything including the backup included, everything, the whole shebang, right? And then on top of that, you can offer your normal managed services per seat, and that's how MSPs go to market with a solution like this,
That is awesome.
right? And I'm sure there's somebody out there who says, well, $418 a month times blah blah blah. I can run a server on-prem for 6 years with that money, half the price. Absolutely, you can. The cloud is never going to beat on-prem hardware in terms of cost, but
Okay.
you got to do this. If you're not doing it, somebody else is doing it, right? And eventually, everything's going to be in the cloud.
So with what you just said, though, the cloud is never going to beat in terms of cost on-prem. So is that one reason why everybody hasn't moved over to this, in your opinion, over to the virtualization?
I think that's one reason, but I think the bigger reason is people just aren't familiar with it, right? You're only going to do what you're comfortable and familiar with. And Azure
That's
is
true.
just kind of, 2 years ago, nobody even talked about Azure, right? 3 years ago. I remember first coming into Nerdio 3 years ago, I had to like hunt to get, customers to talk to me, right? Prospects to talk to me. Now I can't handle the influx of prospects who come in because things are happening, right? Microsoft has made a monumental shift. I mean, I'll share this fact with you.
Sure.
Satya Nadella, who's the CEO of Microsoft, right? He said it took about 35 years for Microsoft to get its 1 trillion valuation number, right? For the company to be worth $1 trillion, it took like 30 something years. It only took them 2 years from 2019 to 2021 to get the second trillion. Think about that
Wow.
for a second.
That's mind blowing.
Yeah. So as an MSP, I mean, nobody's growing that fast. And the customers, and Microsoft's like 30 years old. Like, where else have you seen a company that old do that well, right? It's unheard of.
So I want to kind of go back a little bit, talking about the physical hardware to run these virtual environments. What do people I've heard of these WISE clients, the
yeah.
thin clients.
Yep.
What do most people use and set these environments up with? What kind of hardware?
Yeah, so pretty much every hardware under the sun will let you the ability to log into a virtual desktop.
Okay.
So, like you said, thin client, HP, Wise, doesn't matter the brand, right? 10 Zig makes great thin clients.
Okay.
Thin clients are basically stripped down versions of Windows 10. They call them Windows 10 IoT thin clients. So these guys will run you about $400 MSRP, the lowest cost one, and you can go on eBay, you can find cheaper ones if you want. IGEL, which is a huge player in the European Union area.
Okay.
They have a lot of clout there. They're the largest thin client manufacturer in that area. Not a manufacturer, they make software, but they have this little thing called the UD Pocket, which is basically a little USB device the size of your thumb.
Okay.
You plug that into any machine running, x86 architecture, reboot it, make it boot from USB, and it basically spins up a Linux version of a Azure Virtual Desktop client, allowing you to securely log in, right? Because if you're working with big banks and stuff, their thing is, I want to have my employees work from home and pool all my resources into managing this cloud environment. But if I'm going to let people work from home, I don't want that person using their son's gaming machine to log into my workspace, because what if there's a keylogger on that machine, right? Now, everything I'm typing into my virtual desktop, some hacker in Russia is getting it, right? So we don't want that. So what they do is they equip employees with a little thing like that, small enough to tie into a keychain. You go home, plug it into a USB, reboot the machine, boots up into a Linux operating system, and then lets you securely log in to your virtual desktop, absent of any sort of malware or keylogging activity.
Wow.
So
that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and then you have companies like In Computing, super innovative. They've been around for 20 something years, but they make these really nice like Linux Raspberry Pi thin clients.
Okay.
So you've seen in Raspberry Pi that they're really small. This guy's the size of a deck of cards. This guy will support HDMI out, two of them, 4K monitors, off of a device that retails for $179.
Wow.
Right? So you can have a bunch of these laying around, buy 2 or 3 extra ones, leave them in your customer's closet. If something blows up or breaks, swap it out, and all your data is in the cloud, right? So nothing's living on the device. And if you have a nice managed switch, access point, switch gear, and you have a bunch of these laying around, how many visits do you have to go to your customer, right? Really nothing, because
Not
those things don't
many.
really break. Yeah. So that's the idea that Microsoft Azure allows you to get to if that's the path you want to go to.
So what makes these thin clients like that device for $100 and something? What's the hardware inside of it?
Yeah, it's a Raspberry Pi. Right? Raspberry Pi you can get off of
Oh,
Amazon for like 40
okay.
bucks,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So it's running
So
Raspberry. I think that's what they call the OS,
yeah,
Raspberry.
yeah. The native OS is Raspberry, but the architecture is the ARM processor,
Okay, so
right?
it
So
has like a very low end processor, the
it's
ARM.
low end but highly efficient, right?
Okay,
So
okay.
if you kind of listen to the news, like NVIDIA has been trying to acquire ARM for some time now. Like, well, why would NVIDIA want a low end processor, right? Because these processors are actually very powerful. They run on very low energy. You can actually buy a component to run these guys off of PoE if you want, right? But remember, these guys can deliver CAD CAM workloads at dual 4K monitors. You know,
Wow.
so I wouldn't consider that low end at all. But but yeah, but
I
yeah, I
guess I
mean,
just
there's
think
different,
about it when I think about like ARM processors. I think about
yeah,
like a tablet
cell phone or
processor,
yeah,
cell phone,
yeah.
something like that. Um, so you're saying that ARM probably would be more powerful and efficient than like a Celeron processor?
No, it's all about the software, I think, right? If you're going to run a Windows workload, but first of all, you can't run a Windows workload on ARM, but if you were, I think Celeron is going to be much better for it, right?
Sure, sure.
But the underlying operating system is not Raspberry in this case, right? N Computer made their own Linux operating system that had their ARM kernel. That
And it runs on the hardware, the Raspberry
Yeah, it runs on
Pi.
the hardware. Yeah,
Gotcha.
exactly.
Okay, that
Yeah,
makes
and that's
sense.
how they're able to deliver a solution like this for very low cost, right? And then if you're mobile, a lot of people go for the Surface Go 2s, right? The prices come down dramatically. You can get a new one for I think $399 on sale. They go for like $299 sometimes.
Okay.
They're not bad devices. They're mobile devices, so they're made from Microsoft, so the quality is great. They're compatible with the Microsoft docking system. So, if you want a thin client on the go, this is sort of your best bet.
Okay.
But
Awesome.
really, Azure Virtual Desktop is hardware agnostic. We don't really recommend or care what hardware you use. Some people use their old, Windows 7 machines, upgrading them to Windows 10. Right, the hardware in that doesn't matter. All you need is 4 gigs of RAM to kind of use Azure Virtual Desktop, really. So,
Okay.
use what you have.
Wow. So that's why a lot of people talk about when they virtualize, they just repurpose the old hardware.
Right, right. And computing has a great solution, right? And computing and iJet both, they have this solution that allows you to re-image your machines. So get it out of a Windows operating system or re-image to a Linux operating system. That way,
Okay.
like this thing's called Leaf OS. So pretty much make any device a BYOD device and re-image the machine. Or if the hardware is still good, it's made in the last 10 years, it'll run Microsoft 365 or Windows 365 just fine.
Well, I really like that um, the example you showed a minute ago where it had the thumb drive, the little
Yeah,
flash drive that you boot off the flash drive and you can use any machine
yep,
as long as it can boot off that flash drive. It'll load
exactly.
Linux.
Yeah, yeah. It'll load Linux and it'll do securely, and it's managed from a centralized interface. So again, it's all this stuff is what MSPs haven't really done in the past, and I think that's what either scares them or they feel like they don't know enough to kind of jump into this space. But
Sure,
Nerdio does a
sure.
great job at educating, like we're doing today, right? We'll
Yeah,
teach you everything you
absolutely.
need to know. We'll show you how enterprise organizations are doing it. We'll show you how other MSPs are doing it of similar sizes. And for me to say this, it's I'm biased, right? Because I see it all the time.
Right.
But if you've never seen this before, you might say, "Well, he's crapping me or shooting me." But no, we have customers doing this, all the time. Now, is it a fit for every customer? Probably not, right? If you have
Sure.
customers that don't use any line of business applications, already SaaS-based everything, you might as well go to the modern workplace route, get an Intune license, manage the PC using Intune and call it a day, right? Use SharePoint OneDrive for your shared files and you're done.
Gotcha.
But if you have a customer using any type of line of business application that requires some kind of backend database, you really can't move their workloads to the cloud and have the stuff running over a VPN. Just won't work.
Well, that's awesome. What is the best way for an MSP watching today to, take that next step? Do you have should they reach out to you? Do you still have the Nerdio it's nerdio.com, right? Or no, get Nerdio.
Getnerdio.com, yeah. So my email address, my email address is getnerdio.com, TCAI, let me just type it in, TCAI@getnerdio.com.
Okay.
How to reach out to me. But yeah, you can go to our website, download a trial from the Azure Marketplace. If you're at all confused about the process, just hit one of us up. Will and I are very happy to walk you through, handhold you through the entire process. All I need from everybody on this call is the will to learn. You want the will and want to learn this, we'll spend the effort teaching it to you.
Well, I definitely want to learn it. I know it's not going away. It's something I think that a lot of MSPs who haven't dealt with Azure in the past, like myself, are a little bit intimidated by it. I don't mind telling you that. I'm a little bit intimidated.
Everybody is, right? Everybody is. Everybody when you start, I mean, but I can give you a list of customers that 2 years ago knew absolutely nothing about this and now are deploying clients without even yeah, exactly. Right.
That's
and
awesome.
They've trained all their team, all their staff to do it. And really, Nerdio makes it super easy because what we've done is just created menus for everything, right? So let's say you're an MSP and this is your client, and I've already spun them up. I'm going to go click on their name to manage them. I want to add a new user. I go to users. All right, things are very intuitive how they're laid out. I want to go add a new user. I just click, add. I'm going to add you, Scott.
So rather than doing it in Azure, you just do it inside the Nerdio manager.
Exactly. Yep.
And did I say that right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you a Mac person or a Windows person, Scott?
I'm more of a Windows person. I know my way around Apple, though.
Okay. So how about this? I'll pull something that, we'll do a live demo. Okay. And I don't know how well this works, but I'm sure it'll work fine. I'm going to create you a user, right? Okay. And, oops, here's your password. Well, I'll share it with everybody for now. But we're going to log you into a virtual desktop, see how this works.
Okay, cool.
This is
Well, Tony, I appreciate you using your extra Azure credits on me.
Yeah, exactly. And then I'll assign you to this demo host pool. So if you could do me a favor, Scott, and go to Google and search WVD client.
All right, let me see. Go to Google and search what now? WVD
client. Yep. And I've essentially generated you a username and password to log into our demo environment. And by the way, anybody on this call that wants a demo account like this, I'm more than happy to set you up. I think the easiest thing to do to understand how this all works is to actually play with it and poke around.
Just do it.
And yeah. And,
all right.
Yeah.
So tell me, what am I doing now? I did the WVD client in Google.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. You share your screen and I'll walk you through it.
Hang on. Screen share. And let's say that is 2.
I put you on the spot, I know, sorry.
No, you're good. I'm just trying to figure out okay. All right, can you see my screen?
Sir. So yeah, go ahead and click on the first link there. You're going to download the Azure Virtual Desktop client.
All right, web client?
No, you want the real x86 client. Or x64 client, 64-bit.
Okay.
Yep, go ahead and hit download and go ahead and run that. Install it.
Let's see. So it should be coming in. Hang on. I've got some security. I'm going to have to shut off here. And let's try this again. Let me pull it up to. Can you see it or no?
No, I think you're only sharing your browser. So you
have
to do the whole screen.
All right, let me see. I'm just gonna go through this.
Yeah, next install. Yep.
Okay.
you want to share your screen?
I was trying just to share my browser and not the actual screen. I'm not sure that I want to put everything
Okay.
on there.
Okay. So the point is, you're going to install the client. You're going to log in with the credential I gave you,
Okay.
and you'll be able to log into a virtual desktop, right? So from my side, Scott, it took me no more than 30 seconds to set you up, and that's the amount of efficiency that you as an MSP should expect, right? If a client calls you up and says, hey, I have Margaret starting, right now. I forgot to tell you that she's starting yesterday. I need her to have a desktop ready, right?
Okay.
So within a minute, you can set up her with the desktop. With when you log in, you're gonna see all your applications, your QuickBooks, everything you're expecting, your map drives, printers all set up. That's all done within the Nerdio interface.
So now I'm at a point that says subscribe or subscribe with URL.
Yeah, go ahead and click subscribe, and then punch in the credentials I gave you in the chat there.
Okay, bear with me. Let me pull up the chat.
And after our thing, I'll have to reset your password because I put it all in the public.
No worries. Well, hang on. I am trying to figure out, and I am struggling here. Hang on one second.
Oh, because you're the presenter or broadcaster of Zoom, right?
Yeah.
It might be a little different.
I'm trying. Let me see. Let me just do it this way. So I'm going to click my first name. All right. And I'm looking for the chat. So I think I'm on the wrong client here or something with Zoom, because I'm missing all of my stuff. My controls at the bottom.
Oh, because you're doing it live on Facebook, maybe?
Maybe. I've never lost it before, though. I've done a ton of these.
Oh,
Wait a minute. Hang on. I think I got it now. Let's go through and let's see. All right, let's do this. I think I've cleaned it up. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So what I've done is publish some common applications for you to play with. So these are what we call remote apps, right?
Okay.
So if you don't want to give somebody a full virtual desktop, you don't have to. Your goal is to just take their line of business app and virtualize that. You can.
Okay.
But for today, let's just go to your AVD demo.
All right.
And you're gonna have to punch in your password one more time. And if you had two-factor turned on, it would two-factor you here.
Okay. Let's see.
Yep. Press OK. And in a minute, you'll pretty much get into your virtual desktop running in Microsoft Azure.
All right. Let me see. I got to make sure that it's on the right screen here.
Oh yeah, it automatically will default you and take over all your screens. So this is a very common question I get. How many screens does AVD support? The answer is up to 16. So you can support up to 16 screens.
Okay, so it took a little minute for it to come in, but it's coming in.
Yeah, because your profile needs to load, just like logging into a brand new computer. Your profile needed to load.
That makes sense.
Yeah, some Citrix stuff that's coming up. But yeah, you'll notice that you have a horizontal bar because you either have 2 or 3 monitors, and it's spanned across all of your monitors. So for the audience, if you want to just scroll down on the bottom, just scroll. Oh yeah, you have vertical monitors. I gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I see. So then,
yeah, that's your quick thing into AVD, and again, anybody else on this call who wants a login, I'm more than happy to set one up for you to experience what an AVD environment feels like.
I'm trying to click on it, and I'm not seeing. It's not responding.
Oh, that's not good. This is probably something like in the way that wants you to press OK or something.
Oh, no, I'm even just trying to close down this Teams box.
Go horizontal. How many screens do you have?
I have 5, but
go horizontal. There's more screens on your right side. See the bottom scroll bar, the bottom.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
All right, now I lost connection. Can y'all still see that?
Yeah, we see that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. But yeah, you have 5 screens. It's funny.
I do a lot, so
Scott, I have to run because I have another call to jump on.
Yeah.
301. But yeah, hopefully
Well, yeah, I'll play around with that.
Yeah, hopefully this kind of gives you a better idea of what Azure is, what Azure is capable of, and how Nerdio kind of pieces it all together to make to allow MSPs to deliver a solution that you can sell, make lots of money doing so.
That sounds
and,
great.
Thrive with. Yeah.
Well, Tony,
Again, my
thank you
name
so
is,
much for your
yeah.
time.
Yep. You got it. Take care. Have a good
That
one.
was good. Thanks. See ya. Bye-bye.